Welcome to Francis Reads the Bible. Today I'm moving on to Genesis chapter 19. There's a lot to unpack in Genesis 19. So Genesis 19 is about Sodom and Gomorrah. So the two angels who were with God in Genesis 18 came to Sodom that evening, and Lot was sitting at the city gate. As soon as Lot saw them, he got up and went to meet them. Like, he bowed down before them. It must have been something, like I said, Lot and his uncle Abraham are from the Ur of the Chaldeans of Babylonia. And these were spiritually aware people. They were magicians, astrologers, and all that. So Lot must have seen them and recognized them. You won't just go to two ordinary strangers and say, Sirs, I am here to save you. Please come to my house. You can wash your feet and spend the night. In the morning, you can get up early and go on your way. He must have recognized them spiritually. You get? And then they answered, No, we will spend the night here in the city square. Then he kept on urging them, and finally they went to his house with him. There were no phones at this time for Abraham to have called Lot and said, Oh, there are two angels coming, two great men. When they come, welcome them to your house. You get? And Lot was not the only one sitting at the city gate. And in those times, people normally sat around their city gates. You get? So, I'm sure those two angels were not the only two strangers or only strangers to have come into the city the whole day. He was there at the right time and he recognized them and he took them home. And before the guests went to bed, the men of Sodom surrounded the house. All the men of the city, both young and old, were there. They called out to Lot and asked, Where are the men who came to stay with you tonight? Bring them out to us. The men of Sodom wanted to have sex with them. This is all the proof, that God needed. God had sent these two angels. I'm sure these men, because they came in human form, they must have been gorgeous, like drop dead gorgeous, hot. People people could not stop thinking about them. And these people at the city gate, because a lot of men were there at the city gate. the- Everybody just kept talking about the two strangers, those two very hot looking, tall, muscular, very whatever men that came into the city. For the whole city to gather around, the whole men in the city, young and old, to say, bring them out to us for us to have sex with them. That's gang rape of the highest order. Do you know how many people that lived in Sodom? Serious gang rape. These men couldn't have been the only men to have entered the city that day. Remember, they came in the evening. But now the whole city, not just one or two men, all the young and old men in the city wanted to gang rape them. Those guys must have been so hot that the lust in all these men rose up at the same time. And obviously, this is what they must have been doing to visitors to the city, raping people, raping men, raping women, you know, and committing all sorts of nefarious activities to foreigners in the city. How can you, of let's just say 500 men, I'm sure there were over 100 men in the city, young and old. Just see what the Bible said. All the men of the city, both young and old, were there. And God said he heard different accusations about the city of Sodom and Gomorrah, and he wanted to come and find out if those accusations were true. Voila, here it is. Imagine how many people they must have raped, robbed, and done all sorts to that came into their city. Remember, not just human beings, but spirits were also watching them. How can you, two men, the whole men of the city, not even women, men of the city, wanted to rape them, to have sex with them? Oh, wow. But Lot ran inside, closed the door behind him, and he said to them through the door, Friends, I beg you, don't do such a wicked thing. Look, I have two daughters who are still virgins. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do whatever you want to them. But don't do anything to these men. They are guests in my house, and I must protect them. Like, Lot even offered them women. Okay, yeah, I have two daughters, so take my two daughters. They are still virgin, they are untouched. But no, these men of the city, young and old, wanted these two men, these two gorgeous men. Their lust was for these two men, not anybody. They wanted to have sex with these two men that they saw, but they refused. Lot recognized not just that these two men were guests in his house, but these were angels and they were foreigners. It was wrong, and he wanted to protect them. Like imagine the whole men of the city, young and old, and Lot was the only person with sense in that city. Wow. But they said to Lot, "Get out of our way, you foreigner. Who are you to tell us what to do? Out of our way, or we will treat you worse than them." They pushed Lot back and moved up to break down the door. Sometimes this is the problem of being a foreigner in a city. They just have to remind him, "Come, you're a foreigner, you're not a member of this land. We allow you to stay in this land. You can't tell us what to do. This land is ours." You know. But then the two men inside reached out, they pulled Lot back into the house and they shut the door. And imagine how the men of the city were pushing to rush in with Lot. Those two angels were strong. Then the angels struck all the men outside with blindness so they couldn't find the door. All the men of the city, young and old. So imagine grandfather, father and son coming together to rape two foreigners from every household. They all came together, all the men of the city, young and old. So the angel struck them with blindness, so they couldn't find the door. Man, this is the height of perverseness, you know? Wow. Then the two men said to Lot, "If you have anyone else here, sons, daughters, sons in law, or any other relatives living in the city, get them out of here." They told Lot what was going to happen to Sodom. Then Lot went to the men that his daughters were going to marry. "Hurry up and get out of here. The Lord is going to destroy this place." But they thought he was joking. But then, remember, verses up says, all the men of the city, young and old, were there. So meaning the two proposed sons-in-law of Lot also came to rape these two angels. Wow. And he even went to tell them, "Hurry up and get out of here. The Lord is going." Of course, they wanted it. They were still waiting for the two angels, so they thought he was joking. They didn't move. They were men of Sodom. You know? Wow. Then in the morning, that's at dawn, the angels tried to make Lot hurry. Quick! They said, "Take your wife and your two daughters and get out so that you will not lose your lives when the city is destroyed." But Lot hesitated. But the Lord, however, had pity on him. So the two angels, that's the men, took him, his wife, and his two daughters by hand and led them out of the city. Remember, all the men of the city were blind, young and old, and led them by hand through the wood streets of the city and out of the city. Then one of the angels said, "Run for your lives, don't look back, and don't stop in the valley. Run to the hill so that you won't be killed." But Lot answered, "No, please don't make us do that, sir. You have done me a great favor and saved my life, but the hills are too far away." Lot was negotiating where he was going to go to. The hills were far. He wanted somewhere close. Then the angel answered in 21. All, all right, I agree. I won't destroy that town. Hurry, run to that town that is close to the city. I can't do anything until you get there. This just reminds me of times when, you know, you might hear a word or something within your spirit. "Frances, do this fast. Frances, don't do this. Frances, do that. Frances, abstain from this." And then I'll start negotiating. Nah, God, I can't. Drive fast. For how many? God, please now. Okay, no, let me just. I'll start negotiating. Let me do this one. Let me do water. Let me do this. God is merciful though. When He gives us instructions, we start negotiating. God, I can't travel to that place now. It's too. God is a merciful God. Mm. He's a merciful God that understands we're human. So sometimes we you might say something and God please now. And then yeah, God is merciful. So because Lot called it small, the town was named Zoar. Then the sun was rising when Lot reached Zoar, that's a small town, which was close to the city of Sodom. Suddenly the Lord rained burning sulfur. Imagine sulfur raining from the heavens, falling from the sky. There's nowhere to hide on the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and destroyed them and the whole valley, along with all the people there and everything that grew on the land. In 26, but Lot's wife looked back and was turned into a pillar of salt. A lot of people have said over the years, that women are this, women are that. It's because she's a woman. That's why she looked back. She wanted to gossip. She wanted to this. But one thing I've learned from this chapter is, especially from Lot's wife's action, is God might want to take us to a new place, to the future, to the life He has for us and has promised us. But so many of us stay stuck in the past. We keep looking back at the past, at the mistakes of the past, things that went wrong, the things that happened, people that failed us, people that hurt us, what people think about us, what people say about us. And trust me, I was guilty of this for a while. I just couldn't move on from the hurt and the betrayal and the past. It took the grace of God to look forward to the future. And I think that's what Lot's wife did. She couldn't. That's like letting your past go. She could not. And in looking back, she lost the promise, the promised future for her. That's what I learned from Lot's wife's action. So I'm saying to you, don't be like Lot's wife. Forget the former things, do not dwell in the past. God is doing a new thing in your life. Look to the future, not to the past. Then, early the next morning, Abraham hurried to the place where he had stood in the presence of the Lord in chapter 18. And then he looked down at Sodom and Gomorrah and the whole valley and saw smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a huge furnace. Man, that's hellfire on earth. But when God destroyed the cities of the valley where Lot was living, he kept Abraham in mind and allowed Lot to escape to safety. See, when God can, because of you, bless not just your sons, your daughters, your wife, your husband, but your family relations, your cousins, your uncles, your aunts, your nieces, your nephews, just because of you. And because of Abraham, God kept Lot, Abraham's nephew. He allowed him to escape to safety, not because of Lot, but because of Abraham. He kept Abraham in mind. Lot was a good man too, but it was because of Abraham. You see? And then, like I said, there are a lot of things to learn, to see in this chapter. Because Lot was afraid to stay in Zoar, he and his two daughters moved up into the hills and lived in a cave. The same hills he told those angels he couldn't move to because they were far away. His fear still carried him to the hills and now lived in a cave. Then the older daughter said to her sister, "Our father is getting old, and there are no men in the whole world to marry us so that we can have children. Come on, let's get our father drunk so that we can sleep with him and have children by him." What I've learned from these particular verses, are: one, when the devil wants to destroy you, he will make you myopic, very short sighted. You won't see past what's in front of you. You won't see past what's that situation. You'll see that problem as the your end of your life. Next thing you know, you've committed suicide, or you become desperate and you do something you're not meant to do, marry someone you're not meant to marry. Cause that's a sad thing. To these two girls now, there were no more men in the whole world because Sodom and Gomorrah had been destroyed. But not far from where they were actually, their uncle Abraham, lived there with his sons, his son Ishmael, and all his men. Aside from their uncle Abraham, their uncle's friends, Mamre and his son, had sons, slaves, family members that were all men. There was a whole cities around them. But the devil did not let them look past their present problem, present situation. They didn't even think to themselves, oh, let's move. Oh, daddy, where is your uncle Abraham? Where is he? They're still in that same land of Canaan, but they could not look past it. There are lots of cities around them. But like I said, when the devil wants to destroy you, he makes you myopic. You don't see past your problem. He makes you see that molehill as a mountain. And then two, another thing I've learned is where you raise up your children is very, very important. Lot raised up his two daughters in the city of Sodom. In the land of Sodom, this thing that these two girls, this idea of sleeping with their father, was not a new thing. In the land of Sodom, this men slept with men, women slept with women, sons slept with fathers, daughters slept with their fathers, daughters and brothers slept with each other, from daughters and fathers from the same mother and father slept from each other. To them it was not a problem. You know, they would have thought about it. Oh, we can't sleep to our father. Oh, but to them, their father has what they are looking for. Oh, father is getting old. Oh, there are not many in the whole world to marry us. Let's just get him drunk and sleep with him dry so we can have children. To them, it was okay. You know, even though these girls were virgins, according to Lot, to them it was okay because of the upbringing and the environment they grew up in. Land of Sodom that committed so many atrocities. Aside from men sleeping with men, women sleeping, so many things were done in that land. So to them, this was not a problem now. They didn't see it as a wrong thing because they don't know it as being wrong. So they got their father drunk because they knew he might not agree, and they had sex with him. So to them, that idea was okay. So they gave him wine to drink. Then the first night, the older daughter did it. Then the next night, the other one took her turn. And that's how the kingdoms of Moab and Ammonites came to be. And these Moab and Ammonites were a depraved lot. They worshipped idols, they didn't know God, you know. They committed so much incest, sexual immorality, which is of no surprise. Come on. Their lineage was from incest. They committed so much sexual immorality in Moab and Ammonites that God was, and the Moabites and the Ammonites committed so much that God used the Israelites to destroy them. Their own relations were just destroying them. Because they were from incest. What do you expect? When the foundation is faulty. When the foundation is faulty, it passes through the bloodline. If you're a good person, it affects your children positively. If you're bad, it affects your children negatively and their children's children. Imagine children born through incest, the descendants of incest. The Moabites and the Ammonites did so much atrocity, sexual immorality, idolatry, so many things. They were even offering their children, babies, to gods and whatnot. So it has taught me as a parent, you have to be careful where you bring up your children. Is that country really the best? Is that environment really the best for the children you want to have? If you want them to grow in the way of God, what's going on in that environment? Your children will grow up and accept it as normal. They will see nothing in it, just like the daughters of Lot did, even though they were virgins. Okay, as always, subscribe, follow, etc. God bless you and goodbye.